Welcome back, guys. I'm Zell, and today we're looking at the Cold Steel Prolite. Alright guys, before we get the camera down view, I just want to say something about this knife. It was sent in by a viewer that didn't want it back. So there's some special things that are going to happen with this knife that you're going to want to see at the end of the video. But for now, let's get a look at it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, there she is, our Cold Steel Prolite. And first, what is a Prolite? Well, a Prolite is Cold Steel's entry into that $30 range. You know, they're MSRPing for $50. They're selling for about $33, $34. And they're meant to compete with your Rats, your Metal Arc 2s, your $20 and $30 Kershaws. So this is your entry into the world of cold steel. And as we'll go along, we'll see if it's a good entry. Now what you get is a set of FRN handles. You get good hardware. Cold Steel has been good about that, always putting good hardware in their knives. And as we roll it around the backside, we get fairly good fit and finish. You can see down here that they've left a line where there's a bit of a ledge there, but hey, look, we're dealing with a $35 knife here. We're not dealing with a $100 knife. But you know, that could be cleaned up a little bit, but we're not going to fuss too much. And then we get over to the other side, and we have the little Cold Steel pocket clip. It's tip up, left or right hand, and they give you 6 screws, so you can move the screws around and leave those screw holes filled. Got a lanyard hole, and slightly recessed, almost smooth where the pins and the pivot are. And then down here where the 2 body screws are, they have captured the end of that body screw, and that's beautiful. That's something I wish some more knife makers would do. You know, whenever I see a $75, $150, $200 knife and they've got the screws just running through a nut and then the end of the screws exposed and sticking out there, it's like, what the heck, guys, come on. But anyhow, Cold Steel is always good to capture the ends of their screws, and that's a beautiful thing. And as we roll it around to the top, you can see that the blade fits in there nice and squarely and centers up pretty darn well. Now, one fuss I've got, and Cold Steel seems to think this is the right way to do it, I disagree with them. They put a short section of thumb stud on one side and a long section on the other. Now, I'm one of those weird people that uses both hands. The medical term, I guess, is cross dominance, but I'm not quite ambidextrous. So whatever hand is closest to whatever I'm working on, or can more easily get to whatever I'm working on, is the hand I'm going to use. I'm not going to try to worm my right hand into something whenever it doesn't fit, or I'm just going to use whatever's more convenient, basically. So for feel, I would like to have the same size thumb stud on both sides of the knife. And I wish Cold Steel would do that, or I don't know, I just don't like it. Anyhow, for sizes, we got just under 4 3/4 of an inch in length, a handle thickness of just under 1/2 inch, and a closed height of about just under 1.5 inches. So, you know, it's right in there with most of your 3 1/4 inch medium heavy duty use blades. So nothing really out of whack there. And let's do a little size comparison here. Get that centered up so I don't have to move it around. And we'll start with the Delica, of course. There's our Delica, and the Prolite does not really compete with the Delica, but the Metal Arc 2, which is essentially a Delica in bird clothing, are very similar anyhow. And the Delica or the Metal Arc 2 are going to be smaller than the Prolite, and they're going to weigh about 1/2 ounce less, approximately. So there's that, and we have a Rat Model 1. And the Rat Model 1, of course, is bigger, heavier, all that stuff. And, you know, arguably a more hard-use blade. And this one happens to have D2 steel in it, so it doesn't really compete with the Prolite, but it is a direct competitor with the AUS 8 with this knife. Or the Rat 2 would also be a direct competitor with this knife, with this one falling right in between the two. And then, of course, our Buck 110. And, you know, it's smaller than the Buck 110, of course. And then, just for fun, we'll throw out an 830 Marksman. And it's a little smaller than the Marksman, And anyhow, we'll move on to the blade. And for our blade, we get a hunk of German 4116 stainless. Okay, I did a little looking on this stuff, and I did a lot of using of this stuff. We'll talk about the using whenever we go back out to the desk. My researching told me that this steel is somewhere between Aus 6 and Aus 8, and the use would put it right about there. So, is it a great steel? No, but man, did they make a pretty blade out of it. We got about a halfway up hollow grind, and it's fairly thin at just under 3 millimeter, so it slices pretty good for a semi-hard use knife. And we've got some swedges up here, and nice stone washing. It has that nice smooth feel to it. So, you know, even though it's an inexpensive blade, Cold Steel did a good job with the grinds, they did a good job with the sharpening choil, and they gave us a knife that has a really pretty blade, even if the steel isn't all that great. But we'll talk about that in a minute, or whenever we get back out to the desk. And the blade is about, now this one is about 3.21 inches long. I think they're about 3.25 whenever you first get them, but this one's been sharpened a few times from that use I was telling you about. And I come up with an edge length of about 3.1. So, pretty nice blade, hindered by its steel choice. And from here, we're going to go to the stop and read card, and I'll be right back with you. Alright guys, mechanically we have a standard pivot, and I haven't taken it apart because whenever I get a lock back in, unless it needs it, I generally don't take them apart. And so I assume from looking that we've got phosphor bronze bushings down there, but the most important part of the mechanical end of this is the triad lock. And for you people that think you might want a triad lock knife, this one may be one to get a feel for it before you buy something more expensive. And it is the triad lock, and it does work well. In fact, the triad lock here, the actual bar and release, works better than a Code 4 I've got. You don't have to work near as hard to get it unlocked. And what the triad lock is just like your standard lock back. Whenever we go to close this knife, there's a cutout in the back of that blade tang that this falls down into. A little piece of this bar is sticking out to fall down into that. And then what makes it different than your standard lock back, like say your Delica, is this pin right here, your stop pin. The stop pin rests between the lock bar and the blade. So you have this bar captured in that slot down here on the blade. You have the stop pin right there. So if something were to try to close this knife, they're going to pull this bar into the stop pin. And that's where it gets its extra strength. It prevents this bar from going up because there's another interference right here with the stop pin that will help keep it from raising up. And if you've seen the Cold Steel videos, they will do their job, and it probably is one of the stronger lock systems out on the market. So we won't belabor that point. The lock is good. It's better than some of the other Cold Steels I've dealt with. For a lockback knife, it's a good one, and it's a very strong lock system. Now, ergonomically, this is one of those places where this thing seems to be a Jekyll and Hyde depending on your hand size. I had Susie put it in her hands. She was okay with it, and she's got fairly small hands. And I've got medium-large hands, and I'm okay with it. But the original owner of this knife has rather large hands, didn't like it. So take that into account. And also, the original owner had to take this area right here and smooth it off with some high-grit sandpaper. And that means that there were some molding issues. Left some edging here that probably shouldn't have been there. But whenever you're doing a knife at the low end of the game, sometimes those things happen, even though they shouldn't. And to go on with that, I did a lot of cutting with this knife. quite a bit of cutting all at once. And I found another major issue. That edge right there is very sharp. If I were going to keep this knife, I would have to take that this knife apart and round over that edge, because whenever I was out there, I cut up a whole crap load of cardboard. I bought a 8-foot workbench and all the cardboard went along with that. I started cutting that stuff up, and about halfway through or so I realized my hands were hurting right in here. Whenever I took my hand off the knife and got a look at it, I had little lines right across my hand from this area in here, so those would have to be rounded over. Anyhow, we need to stick this thing in the Levi's, and in the Levi's we go. And that's what you get. So you get about your basic traditional amount of knife sticking up, a little over a ½ an inch worth, and the pocket clip is good and solid. It's not going anywhere. The lift up on a cold steel pocket clip is not too bad. Now, the edges have not been softened very much. Not as bad as some, but still you're going to want to be conscious of it if you're, in the car lot or something, or out in the parking lot, because you don't want to scratch up your car or someone else's. Anyhow, one thing to note is this is not much of a flicking knife. I think I can get it to go left-handed if I really work at it, but right-handed I have some problems. Oh, there it went. But it's more of a just roll it open knife. And and that's fine. That's what a lot of people do with them, and nothing wrong with that. It just goes to the amount of pressure that back spring has on the knife. As far as smoothness in the pivot, there's just a wee bit of grip, but it's not bad. It's got a pretty darn good action as far as rolling it open for a $35 knife. Anyhow, we're going to get back out to the desk and talk about it a little bit more, and you're going to want to stick around for that. Alright guys, so that was a cold steel Prolite. And this is a knife that I really wanted to see if I could like. And I sent this thing through a barrage of stuff. And unfortunately it was dark outside whenever I was doing quite a bit of it, so I couldn't really video it. Apologize for that, but I picked up a 8-foot workbench from Home Depot. And if you ever bought anything like that from a place like Home Depot or Lowe's or Menards or whatever, you know that they come with enough cardboard to make your little one, 2 or 3 pretty awesome forts out of just one set of boxes. So anyhow, I cut up about 3/4 of that cardboard, and I don't know how many feet it was, but quite a bit, before this 4116 German steel got dull. And that's really not bad for a lower end steel. This is on the cusp of acceptable steels. It's a little lower than what I would want, but for some of you guys it may be right there, because it is really, really easy to sharpen. Even compared to AUS 8, it's a little easier, I believe, to sharpen than AUS 8. Definitely easier than 8CR13 MOV. So that's kind of what I did with it. And then I tried to cut some sisal rope, and I got about 50 cuts in, and well, I forgot to turn the camera on. So I decided I wasn't doing that again. Next time I'll turn the camera on, but I'm also not cutting the sisal rope with this knife again. And before you go comparing the results that I got at about 50 or so with what Cedric's doing, don't. We're sharpening them in different manners. It's not at all a fair fight. What he's doing is a very fair fight between the various steels. Trying to compare what I do versus what he does, not fair. Anyhow, from here we're going to go back to another camera down. I'm going to sign this knife, and then you'll see where it's going to go next. Like I said in the beginning, this Prolite was sent in by a viewer. And I wanted to do something a little different. Since the viewer sent it in and didn't want it back, we're still going to give back to the community. And we're going to try to make it a little bit special. I've got this silver Sharpie here. And I'm going to sign this knife, and it's not just going to have my scribble on it. Once I sign it, I'm going to put it in a box. I'm going to send it over to Fun with Knives. Fun with Knives is going to do his review on the knife, and he's going to sign it on probably on the other side or wherever he wants to. Doesn't matter. That's up to him. And then there's going to be a giveaway on this knife. So anyhow, that's how it's going to work. So I guess I should probably sign this thing. So there we go. And I'll get this thing boxed up and sent over to Fun with Knives, and we'll see what he has to say about it. Alright, so as you heard, this knife is going to go off to Fun with Knives. I'm going to put it in the mail. This is actually being recorded way ahead of time, so I'm going to put it in the mail this afternoon. Fun with Knives will get it, within the next 3 or 4 days, and then he'll do his assessment of the knife, and then we'll try to release the videos on the same day at about the same time, so that you guys can see them both. So, Fun with Knives, he's going to be up there under the eye. I'm going to link him down in the description, and if I can get the direct link to the video, I'll link directly to the video. If not, just go to his video or his YouTube page, and it should be one of the most recent videos. And I really appreciate you guys supporting this channel. I really appreciate guys sending knives in. And like I've talked about before, I'll even do a loaner thing where you send something in. If I'm comfortable sharpening it, I'll sharpen it up, do a video on it, and send it back. Please email me before you try to do something like that, because we need to make sure it's something that I need to take a look at, and that you're willing to wait whatever backlog time I have. So don't just send something and expect it back next week. Alright guys, don't forget to watch Fun with Knives review of this knife. I'll have it linked down there. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.